sure that anyone from the public can view these if they would like. So that is going now. All right, the last thing I need to do is read our hearing script. This basically will just cover the procedure of the hearing. And then we'll jump right into the presentation of the applicant's case. So this is the October 8th, 2021 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city of Cincinnati, and I will preside over this hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20210112. The purpose of this hearing is to allow the applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted testimony or evidence or a letter prior to this hearing in writing or digitally. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. The hearing will proceed as follows. Excuse me. The applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. The public will then have an opportunity to present after the applicant has presented its case. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. So for our purposes here today, I'll allow everyone here that is testifying in support or as a part of this application. So the applicants from Fraser Homes, Mr. Studer and Mr. Board and Mr. Alexander, I'll allow each of them to tell me about the project, why it's appropriate for me to grant these variances. And then I will then move to the public. I'll give each member of the public an opportunity to tell me whether they're in support or opposition of this application, and why I should grant or not grant these variances. I'll then go back and give the applicant / owner side an opportunity to respond to any of the public comment. And then finally give the applicant owner side an opportunity to make any closing statements. So for all the neighbors, everyone here from the public, I will ask that since we have a limited amount of time and a large number of people, that if you could keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, that would be great. If you need to go a little bit over, I will allow that. But if you could try to keep your comments to around 5 minutes, that would be very helpful. I'll also again remind you that the public, according to the rules, only gets one opportunity to speak. So it won't be public, then applicant, then back to the public, and then to keep asking questions. You really do just get one bite at the apple. So I'd like to just remind everyone that before we get started, the public gets just that one opportunity to give their opinion about the project. After all that's done, I'll let them again, the applicant owners, make any final statements, and then I'll close the hearing. After the hearing is closed, decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. That's generally testimony you want to provide that consists of a statement or some written document from someone who is not here at this hearing today. In the event of any technical difficulties or unforeseen circumstances with our video conferencing technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those. Excuse me. I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect with the tech that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. Okay, the last thing I need to do is swear in all of our witnesses. And so I'll need everyone who intends on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions. Anyone that wants to do anything other than just strictly observe here today needs to be sworn in. So if that is you, if you could take yourself off mute. I need everyone to answer out loud. Again, anyone who wants to testify needs to be off mute right now and needs to raise their right hand and answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you all. Miss Bolke, did I check you in earlier?
I don't know if you did or not. I
Okay,
didn't.
you're a neighboring property owner, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and your address?
2544 Grandin Road.
Okay, great, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So who's going to be taking the lead here on the presentation of the applicant's case? Will it be the folks from Fraser or Mr. Studer and Mr. Board?
I'll take the lead.
Okay.
Design.
What did you say, Paul?
I'm just introducing myself.
Oh,
I guess I just want to start out with kind of how we approach this project. And we really want this house to have a presence to Grandin Road. I mean, we feel that's more important.
I'm sorry, we can't hear him. He's
Yeah.
stuck.
I know. So, Paul Studer,
Some very elegant.
Mr. Studer, can you hear
we
us?
couldn't hear you, Paul.
You can't hear me?
Now we
Mr.
can.
Studer, I think your connection's a bit slow. It's sort of freezing up.
Okay.
Sometimes, that can work itself out, but you'll need to start over. We didn't hear anything you said. It was frozen the whole time.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I will try and speak closer to the microphone. Again, what I was stating that when we approached this project, we took a hard look at Grandin Road, and we feel that the importance of this house is really on the Grandin Road presence. We drove Grandin Road. There are several houses with circular drives that sit below the road. They're sited nice. They're the right elevation below the road, and they've got a stately presence toward Grandin Road. And that's what we tried to capture when we did this home. What we were looking at was setting the house down enough, having circular driveway come out to give it the elegant presence that other houses on Grandin Road have, and that's kind of where we started. The roof height on here is well within the front elevation heights of the city of Cincinnati and all the other houses on Grandin Road that are not in the Hillside District. The city's roof height is 35 feet to the midpoint of the roof. The front elevation of this house is well within that. There's three aspects of this hearing that are in play. One is the continuous cut, which comes into we will need a small retaining wall on the front landscape wall to get the driveway in, and we're going to hold it to existing grade. And then the other cut is for the basement, which is a 10-foot cut, which is pretty typical of a house of this size, and most of the houses in the development of Grandin View are 10-foot foundations. So the driveway is an issue because the Hillside District does not allow parking in the front yard. And that is pretty much established because a lot of the hillside areas in Mount Adams, a lot of tighter lots where you don't have the ability to get a circular driveway. We feel like, honestly, the circular driveway would minimize the pavement, give the house the look it needs for that area. And that's why the circular driveway came into play. We are not intending to park cars in the front yard. It's more of the presence of the house and the ingress and egress for the development. Third thing is the roof. In the Hillside District, the roof is really measured as a parallelogram. It's 35 feet to the midpoint of the front and 35 feet to the midpoint of the rear. So what happens when you have a sloping lot, you drop 10 feet in the rear, it becomes difficult to get actually the front elevation and the roof heights in play without going to a flat roof on the back. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to go to a low pitch roof on the back and force this building down. We want to keep the presence on Grandin Road. And there's two things to really keep in mind here. If we comply, what we would end up doing is forcing the house into the grade more and lowering the roof pitch, which is a detriment to the front elevation and the appearance of this house. The house adjoining this to the left, their foundation actually sits 7 feet higher than this house. So their starting point is 7 feet higher. And what happens is they're not in the hillside district. The adjoining lot is not in the hillside district, so it does not have to comply to any of these regulations that this property is forced into. So what happens is, in my opinion, if we go and force this house down into the grade to comply to the hillside regulations and force this roof down, we feel it's going to lose its presence on Grandin Road. It's going to lose its stately appearance, and it's going to be a detriment actually to Grandin Road and this property. So that's really the main reason why we're going here for this variance on the roof. And one other impact is that the people behind here, this is a rear yard roof non-compliance, and actually it's the middle of the rear roof that's 5 feet out of compliance. It's not the rear gutter, and the houses in the street below sit 36 feet below our basement on this property. So when you're standing on the street, you're looking up over the roof anyway. You would not see that roof. You're too low. So that's really why we designed the house the way we did, and that's kind of where we were coming from on this approach. All of the other houses in that development, Grandin do have a 10-foot cut in their foundation, or at least as far as I shouldn't say all, the majority. At least I know several of them that do. And none of them have a circular drive because the property really isn't conducive for the grades and that for a circular drive down there. But Grandin Road definitely is, and it would definitely enhance the look and value of this property and the value of the other properties on Grandin Road. So that's pretty much the gist of where we were coming from.
Okay, Mr. Studer, I have one quick question for you off the bat. Did you have a chance to review the zoning department staff report on this project?
No, when we started the project, as far as the hillside district.
So Mr. Henry or Trey Sheldon from our zoning department, who reviews these applications initially and then produces a staff report, he has noted in the staff report that you are in fact asking for 1.5 feet of relief in the front of the building for the front height, and that the front height will be 36.5 feet. Is that different than the designs you've submitted?
Oh, okay. What they're talking about there, I believe, is the dormer, right? They consider if you look at the building, there's a little dormer on the front part of the roof. He's going to the midpoint of that dormer. That's where he's getting the 1.5. So he's asking if we want to keep the dormer, which we think it's aesthetically a feature that needs to be on the house. They consider the dormer a third floor, and that dormer is a 1.5 above 35 feet. So that's where he's coming from. But the body of the roof is well within 35 feet. If it comes down to an issue of eliminating the dormer, we can certainly eliminate the dormer.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mr. Studer. I think that's the only question I had right away. Mr. Board, did you want to add anything to Mr. Studer's testimony?
Really, I just like to iterate the circular driveway. I think that might be a minor variance that we're asking for in this case. But as you drive through Grandin Road, especially in this area, there are several houses in the neighborhood that have the circular driveway. So we thought we were well within that design idea of having that circular driveway in there. And again, it actually improves the ingress and egress out of this lot, along with the other the traffic flow on Grandin Road. And also, again, going back to the building height, the front half of this property is not inside the hillside district. So in that underlying residential code, the building height is 35 feet, which we do meet that. But once we throw the back half of this property inside the hillside overlay district, and that's where we drop that parallelogram on the back of the house, and that angles down through the roof of the house, and that's where we end up kicking that dormer up above the sloping 35-foot versus just the regular 35-foot that would be in the front half of the normal residential code height on that front half of the property.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Board. Anything else right now?
No, that's all I have for now.
Okay, great. All right, I'll move over to Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier, would you like to add anything to the testimony from the residential designers?
Yeah, I would. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Mr. Sturkey, for taking this case. Am I able to show exhibits to share my screen?
Yeah, sure. Through a share screen. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Let me share my screen. First, I want to start off with the house to the left, directly to the house. If we're facing our house, I want to show everyone what the house to the left is going to be. And so we have an idea of exactly what's happening to the left of us. Is everyone able to see that house?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the house under construction right now currently, and this house is being built to the left of us. It's outside of the hillside district, and therefore it does not have to conform to the height restrictions at all. Paul mentioned this as well, given the fact that if we have to conform to the height restrictions, we are going to be well below this existing house, and that stately appearance that it's providing already is going to be lessened because we are essentially creating a house less substantial to this house. Let me go a little bit further. This is our house that we are currently going to build. There's that dormer that Paul mentioned that can be easily removed in order to hit that 35-foot height restriction in the front. So it's not necessarily a matter of if we conform or how we conform. It's just a matter of what does conforming do to the overall neighborhood and the street. We mentioned the driveway. Paul mentioned the driveway. Or we had a little function out there not too long ago where we had a tent and people were gathering, and we looked to meet all the neighbors in the subdivision. And if anyone was walking or driving, everyone had to park on Grandin. There's absolutely no other place to park. And so if the driveway is eliminated, the circular driveway that already gives it a great grand presence, what Roman and Mary Ellen, the homeowners, are going to have to be forced to do is for guests, they're going to have to park on Grandin Road. And I think that in and of itself would be more of a problem than having a circular driveway in front of a grand home. Let's continue on. I show here, this is case ZH20210168. This is for the entire Grandin Road subdivision, that entire subdivision. This was a request by the Barrett estate. They requested this variance hearing October 28th, 2016. And this was for the entire subdivision to be allowed to have an 8-foot cut or better. I'll scroll down to the summary of it that I've highlighted. In summary, the applicant's request for the hillside development was given permission for a cut and fill in excess of 8 feet for the entire property. So this has already come in terms of the cut and fill has already come before a variance review board, and the entire subdivision was approved. Now, the only caveat to this was approved for a 2-year stint. 2-year stint. In the thinking that the entire subdivision would have been built out within 2 years, where unfortunately things have occurred, COVID, and the subdivision had not been built out. But this had already given precedent for the entire subdivision to have excess of 8 feet for the entire property, because the zoning board, as well as Mr. Beard, realized that without this excess of 8 feet cut, it would be very difficult to sell any homes in the subdivision, and difficult to build any homes in the subdivision. Last thing I want to mention, and I'll pull up the plot plan of the existing subdivision. Let me see if I could zoom this in a little bit better. This is the subject property here where we look to build this wonderful home. There's a lot that's currently empty to the right of the home if you're facing the street. I think we have someone on the Zoom call that's going to speak on that, I believe. The homeowners directly to the left of our construct, they have signed and agreed for all forms of our variance to be approved. That's the home that I showed you with the rendering. More so, they are going back with a circular driveway as well. As we go down, continue down, this is a subject lot. This is an empty lot right now, currently right behind the subject property. Have not been in connection with them. Maybe they're on the Zoom call today. I would say the most affected by our home is this gentleman right here on this lot, and he has signed a petition that has agreed for the variance, the rear yard 5-foot variance. We have a homeowner here on 14 has approved. And I just want to bring this up for the zoning board. These are the lots that are in the end of the subdivision, currently at the end of the subdivision, currently vacant right now, but they're to be built on. If the 35-foot height variance is not given to us on our lot, those lots will essentially become unbuildable. Completely unbuildable. And the reason for that is because our lot has a gradual slope. These lots, if you understand grading or plot plans at all, these lots are falling extremely fast. And so in terms of falling extremely fast, in terms of what needs to be done is, I'm essentially saying that although the homeowners here today, hopefully we have a lot of people in support. If we are denied, then you won't be able to have any other neighbors down here at the end of the subdivision, because those lots would be completely unbuildable. It's impossible. Lastly, here is the visual of what Paul and Tim were highlighting. This is the 35-foot parallelogram that we're talking about. At the front, we have attained the 35-foot height requirement. What we're asking for a variance is this 5-foot difference, given the fact that we are on a sloping yard. If we were not building on a sloping yard, if this was a flat yard, if this was a flat lot, we wouldn't be here today. It would be a non-issue. But because we are building on a sloping yard, it's difficult to obtain a 35-foot height requirement at the rear. You can imagine your roof line would have to slope down heavily in order to obtain this 35-foot height requirement. We are simply requesting a 5-foot variance so that we maintain a stately home on Grandin Road. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russ. I'm sorry, Mr. Frazier. Ms. Russ, would you like to add anything?
The only thing that I'll add is that Mr. Francis Barrett, he is in support of this design build. Unfortunately, he's out of town today, so he was not able to attend this meeting. But Mr. Barrett has shared with the Homeowners Association and with us that he is in full support. This is consistent with the support that he showed back in 2016 for the entire neighborhood cut. So Mr. Barrett has been consistent.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. It didn't look like Mr. Alexander was going to testify. Didn't look like he was being sworn in. So unless there's anything else from the applicant owner side, we'll move on to public comment. Okay, great. And I'm just going to sort of go again by the orientation on my screen. So it'll probably track how you guys were checked in. So Mr. Boner, I have you up first. Mr. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
First of all, the Frazier Homes and the homeowners, we certainly welcome you to the neighborhood. We moved here 4 years ago and we understood that there's going to be some building across the street from our home, and we're all about progress and have a good appreciation for what you're trying to get done. And we hope you build a terrific home. But we just want you to do it within the variances. Clearly, it's on the Hillside District. I can say that we've got concerns that a lot of that hillside on the property is constructed with landfill. And I think that's why you're trying to go a little deeper on the foundation. And that if I'm correct, you're looking for 17 feet as opposed to 8 feet, which is more than double on that variance. I think there's some risks to the homes beneath you when you start going with those steeper retaining walls. I can say personally, we bought a lot about 5 or 6 years ago in Hyde Park in the Hillside District. We spent money on architectural designs, got the bids for that home, and realized that if we were going to stay within the Hillside codes, frankly, it was going to be cost prohibitive for us to build that home. So we bailed on the entire project. And I think that, you know, from a precedent perspective, we would just ask that you do the same. With regard to the driveway and the double cut driveway, the circular driveway, I think someone said it earlier, I don't believe there are any circular driveways on the street that have 2 entrances. Clearly, for us, this is a safety issue, given the curve of the road. And I think that at the end of the day, it would devalue the rest of our properties with that type of setup, which would be kind of unprecedented. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think we've got responsibility not only to all of our neighbors from a safety perspective and from a home value perspective, that we've got the responsibility here for everyone that lives here after us. Because once we start pushing these lines further and further out, then, you know, the building codes kind of go away. So I think that we just want to be protective of what's in place. It's certainly a unique project. And I just think that when you have a bunch of brand new homes going into an old established neighborhood, that the codes need to be even more sacred. So again, want to reiterate, we welcome you. Hope you build a great home. We just ask you do it within the variances.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Quick question for you, and this will probably apply to the rest of or most of the neighbors as they testify. If you'd like to comment on it, but is it your contention that the design of this home is out of character for the neighborhood, but particularly when it comes to height and into the driveway?
I didn't see the design of the home until about 5 minutes ago. So I can't comment on that. I would just been researching what the variance requests have been.
Mr. Bowman, are you aware of any other homes that have received excavation and fill relief, whether it's 17 feet or 10 feet?
I am not.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. Mr. Bowman, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes,
The floor is yours.
thank you. I have a couple thoughts. Actually, I'm just getting smart on this project, so I'm not actually sure yet if I'm in favor of it or not. I'm here today mostly to learn. A couple interesting aspects. I want to screen share real fast if I can do that.
Sure.
And can everyone see that?
Nope.
Yes. No. Okay.
No.
Thank you for telling me. There we
Now
go.
we can.
Okay, great. So since I started thinking about my property 4 years ago, and over the last 3 years since we originally started to do a build project on it, it's my opinion that kind of the motivation behind this is really evident in this picture. So if you look at this, this is Google Earth with a street view. And this was the view kind of predating what had happened. So this is Mary's house, I think, over here, and the neighbors. So really not much of a view at all off of Grandin. Now, if we fast forward to today, we can see that what's changed is that our capital and our efforts have created this outstanding view. So really, it's not a surprise to me that once they want to maintain that, and I understand that. But we need to find a way to share this wonderful space together and utilize it effectively. Which brings me to my second thought I wanted to share, and that is that there's a way to cascade down the hill when you build. So you create a footprint that's kind of compliant with the hill and respectful of it, and drops down, but then you end up with the envelope issue. So the alternative to that, which I'm not sure everyone has fully thought through, and is something we're still pondering, is to build a massive structure high up the hill, horizontally across it. So if you don't get the variance on the cascading kind of work with the hill approach, the alternative is a wall, in essence, of a house that no longer needs the variance. So that I wanted to throw out there as a thought. And then the final thought is, I know there's some concern about the hillside. I've probably studied this as much as anyone. The hillside core samples that we took are so stable that we were going to do piers originally, but then came to the conclusion that they're not even necessary. So standard footers, spread footers in this situation, according to the core samples that we took, are more than adequate. So the general concern about the hillside being stable seems unfounded. And that's all I have to say at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rivera. Let's move on to Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes, hi, everybody. So thank you for allowing us this space. We're originally from Mexico, and these things don't happen the same way. People throw names of important people, bribe officials, and things happen, right? So I really appreciate having this opportunity to express my voice. So we bought this property 2 years ago, and we knew obviously that the construction was happening. And one of the key questions that we asked before buying is, hey, tell us about the variances, right? tell us about how my property, I will be impacted. And based on the information at that time, we made the purchase decision of investing in this home. So to me, it's important that we honor the information, the data that is in use, that we made to make this investment. And obviously, even though we are very happy to meet new neighbors, our request is let's keep the rules that are in place, that have made our street a very appealing street to live. It's already a very desirable a place to have our property, and we have a very cordial environment with our neighbors. So what I'm requesting to our future new neighbors is let's find a third alternative, right? A third alternative that allow us to keep the variances in place, and that also allows you to have an amazing property that you enjoy and that continues to be good for everybody. I am concerned also about the safety. My daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, myself, we ride our bikes on the street, and we have had a couple of scares as people tend to skip the speed limit, and having that new curve can also increase can hurt our safety even more. So those are the key things I wanted to say. Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. I see, it looks like the gentleman, sorry, Federico Gonzalez, is he with you there now? Or is
Yeah,
he still on the phone?
it's okay. They're listening to you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say that I support all the comments of my wife. Please, and also I very much support the comments of Mr. Bomber, right? Correct? But yes, thank you very much. Welcome to the neighbors. But please, we need to keep the limits as with, you know, as they were established. That's the way that we see it. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. Appreciate your testimony. Okay, gonna move to Rebecca Bowman.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
You can, yes.
Okay, okay, great. Well, thank you. And I agree with many of the comments that were already stated. I think a couple of things that jumped out to me were just talking about the development. I believe, Mr. Frazier, you had mentioned just how there's a lot of development going on in our neighborhood. And I am at home during the day and I hear trucks backing up. So just to explain, this end of Grandin Road is very narrow. Trucks who are building on the end of Grandin Road actually have to start in reverse in front of the house on the corner. So that's the neighbors who just spoke. From Edwards Road, they have to reverse all the way down Grandin Road, which I'm not sure how far it is, maybe close to 3/4 of a mile through a wooded area and down the hill, and it's causing a lot of damage already. So I see them out there every morning backing up all the way down. So that's the only way they can get trucks down that hill currently. And there's already 3 homes being constructed at the end. And then the other one to the left of this property that was mentioned earlier. Also, there was a lot of speaking about the property that is being constructed to the left that is not in the hillside district. That was originally the Barrett estate. So it makes sense that Fran Barrett is in favor of development because this was all of his property prior to selling that home. So that was sold and divided into different parcels and sold separately. So it makes sense that he's in favor of any building that's going on any of these properties. And I guess I would just say with the architectural design, I heard a lot of like, if we are forced to comply, if we are forced to comply. And I guess I would just say, like, I agree with everyone that these rules are in place for a reason. The picture that Mr. Rivera had showed, and I remember that from years ago, walking down Grandin Road, that it was a fence and a lot of trees that were where lot 18 and 19 are now, which is the property in question. And it was a straight drop off. So beyond that fence it went straight down the hill. It was all trees. Now that's completely cleared out. And from my understanding, there were truck after truck after truck of landfill coming in to make the grade that's there now. So in my opinion, I think we all owe it to protect anyone who's planning on building there. That I think it wasn't, I think Mike addressed it earlier, but the fill that the excavation that they're requesting is at 17 feet versus the allowed 8 feet. To me, that just says, I don't think it's stable, and we need to go as far as we can to make sure that this is going to be a stable home. So that's the biggest concern to me versus the circular driveway. It is what it is. The height variance, we did purchase the view when we moved here. We knew that someone was going to build, but we'd ask that you stick within the guidelines because it is directly across the street from our home. So I do believe that our value will be affected negatively by building this home, regardless of whether it's in the guidelines or not. And I appreciate the goal to make it a stately home. This is a beautiful neighborhood, but a big part of the appeal to this neighborhood is how quiet it is and how private it is. And it was like that when we moved in. And since all this building is going on, it is, cars parked up and down the street. It is trucks, like I said, backing down the road every day. Close calls with drivers who don't stop at the sign coming up and maybe don't understand that you have to wait to take a turn onto this road. There's just a lot going on. And so I guess as a citizen who lives here, I would just ask that we protect these laws and try to make sure people understand that when they are going to build here, they have to stick to the rules.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. As I hear the testimony, I look through the maps. I have to, particularly for this area, and I need to go out and I'm required to do a site inspection for every application, but this one, the street view on Google is a little bit difficult, and you can't even actually get into the neighborhood there on the street view for the one. So just a question for Ms. Bomer while we have you. Is this going to negatively impact views? That view that Mr. Rivera showed, that this home is going to block that view for some folks? Is that right?
That's correct. It will completely block the view from our home.
And if they were to stay within the 35 feet limit, would that open up that view?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I do believe the farther, I think Mr. Rivera had said that the farther you go down the hillside, obviously, the sidewalk sits up a little bit, so you may be able to see over it if it's within the variance. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far back it sits, and but I would think the farther you go down or the closer you stick to the variance, the better that we're going to have the opportunity to maintain our view.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Bomer.
Sure.
Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Mary Schluter. I apologize if I'm pronouncing
It's okay. It's like Scooter. But I'm listed as the owner. My name is Mary Welsh. My husband is Dr. Frank Schluter. We've been here since 1999. So we actually have seen a transformation of this area once the entire area was raised by the Barretts and divided up into 17 different parcels. So again, just like Rebecca indicated, it is no surprise that the Barretts agree and want to have people who bought their property to have the best possible opportunity to live on the property. And so it's capitalism, right? I get it. However, unfortunately, capitalism doesn't take into account that people have already been here or bought here, believing that the people who are going to be building within the variances. And the belief was Eric Russo sent in a letter to you last night indicating that the Hillside District was specific in how it crafted and created the parameters for people who built. And so but both lot 18 and lot 19 were specific with the Hillside District. So when they were bought with the indication that people would abide by these variances. And so having individuals say, look, we want a better, more stately presence of a home. Great, do that within your variances. You bought the property knowing that the variances are in effect for the Hillside District, specifically crafted for this hillside, abide by the variances agreed by the city of Cincinnati and by Mr. Barrett. So that's the first, to indicate that a stately presence, aesthetics are the only reason that you're making us go through this variance is unconscionable, okay? Just so you know, David Sturkey, we filed, the Averas did a hearing in 2018, and that hearing case number was ZH2021011249. It was heard and it was decided upon on April 30th of 2018. So the current variance request is very similar to the one that we fought across the street. And if you look at the precedent, you cannot be in favor of this variance request. If precedent is important, the city of Cincinnati, because at 28 decision, essentially it said that variances cannot be granted for height. They did allow additional excavation, but a geotech engineer had to be on site the entire time. So as you probably know, that's a significant increase in monetary commitment by both the developer and the individual who bought the home, the owners. So I hope the owners know that, whatever is being done here, when the cost is projected, the cost will also have to include all of those geotech engineers to indicate, again, precedent to have the appropriate hillside stabilization be put on. Also, I know Eric indicated that when they did their borings, there was no issues. I would like to see that in writing, because if you look at the geotech information that was provided for this case, it does not indicate that. It does not indicate that the fill is stable. So, and also does not indicate that any contaminants are in the ground. No testing has been done of contaminants because the EPA did not look at the fill or require the fill for 3 weeks that was dumped in. So that's just a sidebar for anybody who has kids. It needs to be tested for contaminants. So overall, we believe the dimensional variance for the hillside height and front yard parking should be denied based on precedent. So if you look at 2018, April 30th, it was denied for height. Also, the front yard parking should also be denied. Having 2 additional curb cuts, when you go and walk this road or look at this road, you'll see it's on a blind turn. You have 2 additional curb cuts on this. This will be you'll have even greater liability for those people who are backing up. Also, when the architect indicates that this will not be used for parking. So I want to be clear. If anybody parks in this driveway, will they be then in violation of the city of Cincinnati code? Can a policeman, a CPD policeman, go and ticket someone who's parking in this, in this 2545 driveway, essentially? Or will it just be null and void? So, I mean, if you can guarantee that nobody will parking, it will only be an access to the garage, fine. I think that's ludicrous, but I think that argument is ludicrous. But if you can guarantee that no one will ever park in their driveway and only use the covered garage, I just don't understand. I don't understand the thinking on that. It was very specific with the Hillside District and this area to say no front yard parking. No front yard parking. That's pretty understandable. So when the people bought this property, they should understand hillside variances should be in place. Look at the 2018 precedent. No front yard parking. So essentially no half circle driveway with 2 curb cuts. Be within. Everything you're talking about, it's got to be a stately presence. It's got to look like the next door neighbors, etc. No, none of these city codes They're all under, only if hardship is undergone can you change them. For aesthetic reasons alone, you cannot violate the city of Cincinnati variance request. You cannot do it. It will be illegal for the city of Cincinnati to make these if it's only based on aesthetics. If the architect said, we want to do this because this is undue hardship, that was none of the argument here. So by default, this shouldn't even be heard because it's based only on aesthetics. I welcome anybody who comes to this neighborhood, but like all of us across the street, we have all had to abide by rules, by variances, by anything that was here. And we expect them to abide by the same rules, period. And so you can tell I'm against any type of variance allowances here. You'll also read, if you read Eric Russo's note, he specifically says the same thing. All of these hillside district regulations and requirements are put into effect for very specific reasons, specifically in 18 and 19. And I don't know if Eric knows this, but lot 19 was specifically asked to lay fallow for at least 10 years so that the fill could lay because there's an underground stream underneath. So the belief was 18 and 19 had specific issues specifically with fill, and just so everyone knows, the sidewalks are tilting down this hillside. So if anyone says that the hillside's not going downward, all you need to do is look at the sidewalks. They're literally probably have gone down 5 inches. There have been issues underneath the road in terms of stabilization. The sewer district, the water district have had to go and reconfigure what's going on underneath the street because literally the hillside is going down. So good luck with your foundation. I hope you have great insurance, but there is movement. So if you don't do any peering, I would wonder about that. I mean, this is just like Mount Adams. So I think that's, oh, and one other point, I believe that Mr. Fraser indicated, he said we would have to park, all of the guests of lot 18 would have to park on the street. Just so we're clear, it's illegal to park on the street. There's a big sign that says no parking beyond this line. So one of the reasons why everyone parks in front of our house, everybody, is because we're the only area where it's actually legal to park. Otherwise, Cincinnati Police Department would love to ticket everybody who is beyond that sign. So if you have a big party, I know Melissa and Shannon know this, it's illegal to park on any piece of Grandin beyond the sign. So anyone's guest has to park somewhere else. So that's not a good enough justification to have a crescent like a driveway with 2 curb cuts, because that's not a good enough reason. No one can park on Grandin. So you have to park your car somewhere else, no matter what. See if there's anything else. And in terms of aesthetics and value, this will not enhance our value. And just so everyone's clear, we had a view of the river before the Barretts raised all the trees. So this in no way, having the Barretts take down all the trees didn't enhance our view. Now we just look at a very barren meadow, essentially, of grass that's cut every week. So, this to indicate that all of us don't want this because of a view is ludicrous. We're up high enough so we can actually see the river. So the people I feel a little sorry for, the people to the right of us, anyone who's bought with the indication by the Barretts that the variances would be in effect. People bought thinking that everything would be according to what has been established. And if that's not the case, then you're really not being a good purveyor of the city of Cincinnati for all of those who pay taxes currently. And with the understanding that we would have what was established and agreed upon. And the precedent has already established in 2018 when we did this hearing against 2019. All right, or against lot 19. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of quick follow-up questions.
Sure.
Ms. Walsh, you referenced a case number from 2018.
Yeah, so in my letter that I sent to you, I do. Are you ready?
Oh, it's referenced in that?
Yeah, it's in it, but I'm happy to give it to you again for anyone else.
No.
You can look it up.
No, I can find it.
I think Kevin Tidd was the examiner, TIDD.
Sure.
Yeah,
yes,
I sent you a letter I received from Cassandra indicating that it was received, was dated September 5th. Okay, good. So the case number's there. And you'll see it was decided against any height variance. And I believe Mr. Rivera also asked for front yard parking, but it wasn't specific, but it was the way that the house was oriented. There was a lot of discussion about that, how that was not, appropriate for the, but it was not part of the hearing, but it was discussed during the hearing about how that was not, did not follow the variance, the district requirements. And front yard
Gotcha.
parking is not something that anybody.
So it's your understanding, Ms. Welsh, that there have not been any variances granted for height in this neighborhood or in this district?
Well, so this is the deal. When I spoke with Ms. Frazier, she indicated that all the homes below, so far below. So if you look at the way this whole subdivision works, it's 2 up on top and then a bunch, like 15 below. So anyone below, she said, no one got variances and everybody was digging deeper and having higher height variances. And so this is my understanding. We never received a green postcard about any of those homes down there. And by default, they're at least 50 feet down. So whatever variances they would have requested, your city solicitor, your people, your zoning people should know how high if they went above and beyond. She indicated that they did violate the variances. However, I don't know if they're in the Hillside District. So I don't know what the requirements are, but this is the first. So lot 19 across from us was filed in 2018. The height variances was declined. And so there's the precedent says decline height variance. And then just the one next door, which we just got the green postcard for, a couple of weeks ago. So those are the only 2 that have requested variances that we know about here on Grandin Road. And I want to let you know one other thing. Sorry, I want to let you.
When the trees were there, you still had a view.
Yep, still had a view.
Will this project, if the variances are granted, will it affect your view?
Well, if you see where I am, it's to the left. So will it have no, I mean, I'm going looking the other way. Will it be in my way? I'm looking out my window right now. Perhaps to the left, but our view is bluntly straight on and to the right. So we see the city and we see the river. This property is to the left of me. The people who will impact will be Anna Bulkey, I believe, though I'm not taking anything out of her words. And then the Bomers, I believe they are the most adversely affected by this. And again, it's a hillside trust issue.
You're saying that the double curb cuts are uncharacteristic. I think it was Mr. Ballmer earlier that said that there are not double curb cuts in this neighborhood. Is that right?
Yeah, and so I don't know what the architects are talking about, how there's all these circular drives. There are no, with contiguous, so touching all these adjacent properties. We have a straight in driveway, the people next to a straight in driveway. I don't know anybody.
As I look through, again, this is street view, and I will drive through the neighborhood and see everything as it currently is. This is Google Street View, which has, as Mr. Avera pointed out, varying dates associated with the pictures. But I see one right at that intersection. Edwards and Grandin. It looks like there's one on the corner that has a double curb cut.
Right, but that's across the street. That's across the street.
It's
not even part of the subdivision. It's not even part of the Grandin View discussions. They're not even, just your green postcard doesn't even go to them. So they're not considered just like Rookwood is not part of us. Anything to the right of the Grandin, which has and on my note, I talk about how this is a much narrower piece of road. We had a traffic study done because originally, just so you don't know this, but originally the Bears wanted to have a roundabout, rather than what they currently have. And so then a traffic study was done. And that's what I'm asking. If you wanted to do a half crescent driveway, you should do a traffic study, because the traffic study was done. This piece of Grandin is extremely narrow. There's a reason why there's no dotted line. There's no lanes, no traffic lanes, because it's not legally wide enough to have that. However, if you go on to where the individual you just said, who had a half whatever circle driveway, that piece of Grandin, and if you drive it, you'll see that piece of Grandin is wide enough to have that. If you wanted to have an appropriate Grandin sized lane like we have here, you would literally have to take pieces of property to make it a wider lane. So that's why this blind turn where those 2 curb cuts is so unsafe, because one, it's a blind turn, it's the narrowest piece of Grandin, and it's honestly we've been here for a while. There have been a lot of very close calls of pedestrians getting hit, bicyclists getting hit. Big, huge trucks are going down. They're going up and over the curb. It's very narrow. And so I think it would be foolhardy. I know the people who are indicating who would like to build this house have at least one child. Kids can get hit on the sidewalk because it's so narrow where they want to build this driveway. It's a liability to the city of Cincinnati.
I'm not suggesting that this is a justification for a double curb cut. Obviously, I need to go through, and I don't know when some of these homes were built, but if you do go in the opposite direction from Grandin, around that blind curve towards the
Chavez's, I think the Chavez's, they
there's
built a new home.
There's a giant stone home.
That's Melissa and Shannon. Yeah, that's been there since. Yeah, that's been there for a long time. That's been over there for over 100 years. So
there's another one right past that, directly adjacent to it, that has sort of a brick double curb cut circular driveway. And I just asked again,
but they're not contiguous.
Out of character for the neighborhood.
Yeah,
it looks like actually those three homes all in a row there. They're all on the the riverside, you could say, of Grandin Road. On the narrower portion of the road, all have double curb cuts. And then
I know one of them was specific, to new construction. So again, I don't think the zoning, I have no idea. They're not part of the Hillside District. So I think this is very specific to the Hillside District. So again, it's a Hillside District. It's a little near all those homes you're talking about. At least one of them, the huge one you sit on the one side, that's the Murphys. That's a home that's been in the family for a really long time. And that's a huge amount of land in the front. So their driveway is a very spread out, it's a flattened curve. Again, that's on a very straight piece, just so you know, it's a very straight piece of Grandin Road. So again, the one you're talking about here is specifically on the turn or on the corner. And I know that when the Barretts specifically put this piece of property together, they had believed that people were going to be sharing the driveway with the now new owner of the Barrett estate, that they, got rid of the old building. So that was the belief that, just so you know, originally the Grandin View, none of them were supposed to have any driveways or anything opening onto Grandin. You're only supposed to get through it on that Grandin View road piece. So all the traffic was going to go down Grandin View and they were going to get to their homes in that way. The only exception, I believe, was the home we're talking about right now, where they were going to use that existing driveway that had been put together by the Barretts. It's an old part of the drive. And the belief was they were going to have an easement to use that driveway. So it could go to the Barrett estate and to this, whatever this lot 18 was going to be having. So I don't know if the architects even talked to Mr. Barrett or to Lou Beck, who's the new owner of the old Barrett estate. But I believe that was the understanding, that they would not be able to get through Grandin View. They had to use an alternative entryway. And so the belief was it was going to be on the Barrett estate driveway that they were going to be deviating, having essentially two driveways coming off the same road.
As well,
that was something you'd have to talk to the Barretts about.
Okay, thank you again for being here. Thank you for your testimony.
No worries.
Thank you. They're going to give the Riches an opportunity to provide some testimony here. So Andrew or Wendy.
Sure, thank you. Can you guys hear us okay?
I can, yes.
There have been a host of really great points made here by many of the neighbors, both the Gonzalez's and the Bomers in particular. And one that I'd just like to reiterate. Look, Mr. Alexander and Scott, by extension, we want you guys to build the home of your dreams, and we are really looking forward to welcoming you as neighbors to our neighborhood. As you can tell, it's a tight-knit community of folks that really care about this place, and we want to preserve the look and feel of it. All that we ask is that what you guys build conforms with the rules, and the rules are there. I think Mrs. Gonzalez made a really great point. The rules are there for a reason, and Mike extended the point by saying, look, with everything else going on development-wise in the Hyde Park area, holding these things to be sacred is of the utmost importance right now. So really would just like to highlight that point and reiterate that. To the question, so that said, we want you to build your dream house. We just want you to do it within the scope of the rules. To the question of height and the variance requested. And this draws directly back to the 2018 case that Mary mentioned, whereby approval of sort of piercing that height rule is really, it's intended to be reserved for specific instances where there's a true hardship on the lot. Like you don't have enough space to build out. So unfortunately you have to go up. I think the gist of the ruling in the 2018 case was that, look, it's a approximately 30,000 square foot lot. So there's ample room to build something that conforms. And I think that same precedent extends to this piece of property as well. So that's one point. And then just to the point of precedent, look, folks, how many times do we want to go through this exercise? We've done it once before, right? And if this height issue or variance were to be approved, how long do we all think it's going to take before those folks with the remaining lots down below, which there's probably still a handful of purchased but unbuilt lots, we're all going to be in here doing that, having that same discussion. So let's be mindful of the precedent that this decision sets for the time that we have to dedicate to these types of debates going forward. So the last point I will make is with regards to the fill. Also within the Avera case in 2018, their height variance was denied, but they were allowed a fill of 5 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit. Scott, is that correct? Is that what it was? Okay. So, you know, that was approved, and the record should reflect that. So, however, I think what is being asked for here is a different animal. So rather than just 5 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit, what's being requested here is to take the limit, double it, and then add another foot to that. So that just seems like, whoa, folks, what are we doing here? How is this really going to impact what this place looks and feels like? So I would just ask that we take that, just the sheer numbers there into consideration. And that's it. Again, I just think the most important point here is that Scott, Roman, we want to welcome you guys to the neighborhood. We want to have you guys be part of this special place. All we'd ask is that what gets built complies with the rules, because the rules are there for a very, very good reason. Thank you for allowing us to weigh in.
Thank you. Thanks for being here and thank you for your testimony. I assume were you speaking on behalf of Wendy too, or Wendy, did you want to add?
Yes, no, he spoke on me.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, Anna Berkey. Floor is yours.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Thanks for the time. Just to save a little bit of time, I just wanted to echo basically everything that my current neighbors have said in opposition to the request. Everything that the Bomers said, and the Riches and Mary Schluter and the Shermans and the Ms. Gonzalez. The new build would affect my view. I'm high up, and so this would definitely affect my view to the left. And I just ask that you, as my other neighbors said, stay within the rules that are in existence. And I'm in opposition to this. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, the last person here from the public is Amy Avera. Amy, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go back now to the applicants / owners / designers. Anything that you would like to say in response to some of the comments you've heard today?
Absolutely. I guess starting with the fill, the Hillside District requires extensive soils, geotech, structural engineers, which is actually, I think, a wonderful thing for the Hillside District and for the city of Cincinnati with other issues that have come up. But to ease the minds, nobody wants a more stable site than us, or the builder or the homeowner, and whatever geotech requirements are required by the city, we will certainly comply to, and they have already been done, and we have the building designed per the geotech through our structural engineer. So the other thing I'd like to address is they were saying the circular driveway would increase traffic. The homeowner's going to come out of his house as often as he has to come out of his house. It's not going to increase traffic. It's only going to allow him an access on the Grandin Road. I mean, he's not going to have any more cars there than he normally would have one access. It just makes it easier and better to get the parking off of Grandin Road, give him ingress and egress, and then minimize the driveway that he has to have for a turnaround in front of his house to get out to Grandin Road. The other thing is we looked at this site plan. I am certainly unaware of any easements. It's not on any site plans from the original Barrett property. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, because from the survey and from the property deed, there is no easement that was recorded on there. So to my knowledge, that doesn't exist. The other thing I'd like to address is, everybody's talking about the height. We will not lower this is not going to lower the face of the building in the front side. We comply in the front. All we have, in order to comply, is we got to get the rear roof down enough to get below that midpoint line. And in order to do that, we can drop that roof down and get down to about a 312. But our intent to lower the front, that's within the compliance of the city. That's well within the compliance. The other thing I'd like to say is, we're looking on Google Earth, and the 3 properties adjoining this all have circular driveways. The Barrett property was the Barrett property to the right, to the left. The house adjacent to that to the left, and the house adjacent to that all have circular driveways. So it is pretty apparent that does occur up on Grandin Road. So I guess
just to be clear on the rear height. So the rear height does not extend above the front height. Is that right?
No. The midpoint of the
rear is lower down, so the measurement is taller, but it doesn't actually extend above in the long views. Is that what you're saying?
The front will not change. We're only talking about the height in the rear, on the rear of the building. So from a front standpoint, it's not going to. It may lower that main ridge 2 feet enough in order for us to get the framing to work out, but essentially the front height does not change. It will come down slightly, but what we'll do is we'll put a steeper pitch on the front to maintain the look, and then we'll put a lower pitch in the back to get below the imaginary parallel line. And we feel pretty confident that we can get that all to work out, but it's not going to improve the aesthetics of the building, and especially from the rear. So the height issue, I understand the concerns. I understand all what is being said, but I don't know if we're completely understanding where this height impact comes into play. It is only like 1/3 in on the rear of the building. The front height is within compliance. The other thing, you know, it's the front half of this yard is not in the hillside district. So the circular drive is really not part of the hillside district. The back 2/3 of the lot is in the hillside district where the building comes in. So it's pretty much my point. I mean, I guess where I'm at is you want to make the building as best and aesthetically pleasing as you can from Grandin Road. And there is going to be a building on that lot at some point. I mean, if this one or another one, Grandin Road is what's important, in my opinion.
A couple more quick questions about the excavation. Will this be one 17-foot cut?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It is contiguous cut. So we will have like a 3-foot landscape wall in the front. You have to count that. Then you come to the house. We're going to have it'll be a 10-foot foundation just because the slope to catch up with the rear of the slope. So that puts it at 13 feet. And then there is subfooting, cross footing on the back of the porch, which we have to include that. So as you come down that lot and you step down that lot, that's where the grade comes into play. There is not a continuous 17-foot cut. That's not how the requirement works. Anything over 8 feet, whether it's a landscape wall, sub foundation, they continue that part of the contiguous cut.
It's measured as a cumulative cut. So
Yes,
this 17 feet is a series of cuts that is stepped up the hill.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So we have, as I said, a small cut at the driveway, and that's just a landscape cut to get the driveway level at the house. Then we have the foundation dig. So that puts you at 13 feet. And then we have a sub foundation because the lot slopes that we got to get down to frost footing. And then that's also part of what they say is, you know, a continuous cut or a cumulative cut.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Studer?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have right now. Anything else from Mr. Frazier or Ms. Russ, either in closing or otherwise, before we adjourn today?
Yeah, just in closing, just to reiterate with what Paul has said. Today we heard a lot of testimony, a lot of people mentioning that we should just maintain the rules. While maintaining the rules, they have to be maintained for a set reason. No one here on this call, Ms. Bulk has mentioned that this is going to affect her personally. Well, Paul just showed that the house from the front, this is not going to change. There's no change to this. There's no change in the height. And so while it seems, you know, we're just setting a precedent. We just stick by the rules. Well, these rules are not affecting anyone. All it is affecting the homeowner. That's it. There's no one here that would know the difference if we built this home or another home with a slope roof at the rear. There's absolutely no change in your personal enjoyment and your view. There's absolutely no change. The only question in play is maybe the driveway. But as you see along, if you would Google Maps, several driveways with that circular drive. I just would like that to be taken into account, the actual effect of this structure being built. What is the actual impact, not just perceived or conjecture or discussions, what is the actual impact to anyone here? The people that have the actual impact, the people that are below this home have signed off and approved everything. The neighbor directly to the left has signed off and approved. Mr. Oliveira, I think he would sign off and approve, because these are the people that are most affected, not people down the street or 4 houses down. The height does not affect anyone on this call.
Mr. Starkey, I'll also add that when we are citing previous cases, particularly the 2018 case, I think it's important that we are looking at similarly situated occurrences. This is not a similarly situated occurrence. The height request back in 2018 was nowhere near the 5 foot what we're requesting on the back. And then to Mr. Frazier's point here, the individuals who are impacted by this structure have agreed and are very much in support of Frazier Homes building this home. This is the second time that we're in the Grandin View area. I know that there is a lot of discussion about all of the work that is happening and how loud and how unruly some of the builders can be in this area. This is not our practice at all. We have been very, very cordial and wanting to work with the neighbors, as evidenced by me personally walking the neighborhood to try to get to meet our neighbors, and then also hosting the event to try to help them understand exactly what's going on. It's evident that there's not clear understanding by virtue of the fact that the height requirement in the front is there's no impact. All the individuals on this call, I'm not for sure are fully educated on that fact, but we are in compliance up front. The height requirement on the back is the 5 foot that we're asking that you grant, and the individuals on the back of the house are very much excited about this beautiful structure going up in Grandin View.
All right. I think we will leave it at that. I want to thank everyone here today for their time and testimony. I want to ensure everyone that I will, in fact, do a site inspection, go through the neighborhood, and to try to examine neighborhood compatibility with the design. I will review. I know that there have been a number of cases that have come through our office and have been decided either by my predecessors or by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so I will review all of the relevant case law, including the 2018 case and 2016 cases that have been referenced today, and examine how these variances have been treated in the past before I make my decision. And then, of course, all of the written correspondence that has been submitted, to the extent I have not been able to read through any yet, I will be certain to consider and read through all the written correspondence as well. So again, thank you all for your time and testimony. These generally take 2 weeks. Sometimes they can extend a little bit beyond that. If anyone would like an update on the status of this decision, feel free to send me an email, or if anyone has any other procedural questions, in the meantime, feel free to send me an email, and I'll be happy to respond. As soon as I finish these decisions, I put them into a PDF and I email them out to everyone who's in the hearing. So you all will have the decision really just moments after it's complete. I can't take any more testimony, any more evidence. So any correspondence that comes in that continues to argue, again, support or in opposition of this application, I will not read those or consider those. It's limited to everything that's come to me before the hearing. And I think that's it. Any other questions right now? Okay, like I said, feel free to reach out if you do have any more questions. And I thank everyone again for their time and their testimony. I hope everyone